The silence of a betrayal is always louder than the act itself. Most men think the danger lies in getting caught, in the screaming matches, the flying plates, the tears. But Mark Thorne was about to learn that the true nightmare isn't the fight, it's the disappearance. He thought he was the one holding all the cards, the one living a double life. He was wrong. When he walked through his front door at 3:00 a.m., smelling of another woman's perfume, he didn't just find an empty house. He found a life that had been meticulously erased. No wife, no baby, no photos. Just a single, terrifying question that would tear his reality apart. Who was the woman sleeping beside him for the last 5 years? Stay tuned, because this isn't just a story about cheating. It's a story about a man who realized too late that he was the prey. The smell of Jessica's vanilla perfume was still clinging to the collar of Mark Thorne's shirt as he navigated his black Audi Q8 up the winding driveway of his estate in Silver Lake. It was 3:14 a.m. The city of Los Angeles slept below him, a grid of glittering indifference. Mark felt good. Actually, he felt invincible. He had just closed a massive merger for his architectural firm, Thorne and Associates, and he had celebrated in the arms of his 24-year-old executive assistant. It was a cliché, he knew that. But Mark didn't care about clichés. He cared about adrenaline. He cared about the feeling of being wanted, something he felt he hadn't received from his wife, Sophia, in months. Sophia. He rolled his eyes as he parked the car. She had become so maternal, so dull. Ever since Leo was born 10 months ago, Sophia had ceased to be the vibrant, mysterious art curator he had met in a gallery in Soho 5 years ago. Now she was milk stains, sleep training schedules, and whispers of, "Shh, you'll wake the baby." He killed the engine. The silence of the property was heavy. Usually, the porch light was left on for him, a passive-aggressive beacon of her wakefulness. Tonight, the house was dark. A massive, modern structure of glass and steel that looked like a jagged tooth against the night sky. Good, Mark thought, checking his reflection in the rearview mirror and wiping a faint smudge of lipstick from his neck. She's asleep. No questions. No guilt trip. He unlocked the front door, stepping onto the polished concrete floors. The air inside was cold, colder than usual. The thermostat was usually set to a comfortable 72 degrees for the baby. Tonight, the air bit at his skin. "Sophia," he whispered, tossing his keys into the ceramic bowl on the console table. The sound of the keys hitting the bowl seemed deafening, like a gunshot in a canyon. No answer. He walked to the kitchen. The island was spotless. Usually there were bottles drying on the rack, a half-finished cup of herbal tea Sophia had forgotten. Tonight, the granite surfaces gleamed under the moonlight filtering through the skylights. There was nothing. Not a spoon, not a bib. A prickle of unease started at the base of his neck. "Sophia," he said, louder this time. He climbed the floating staircase, his footsteps heavy. He went straight to the master bedroom. The door was ajar. He pushed it open, expecting to see the lump of her form under the duvet, the rhythmic rise and fall of her breathing. The bed was made. Not just made, it was pristine. Hospital corners. The pillows were fluffed and stacked with geometric precision. It looked like a showroom display, not a bed where a tired mother had been sleeping. Mark frowned, his heart rate kicking up a notch. Maybe she's in the nursery. Leo must be sick. He turned and strode down the hall to the nursery. He grabbed the handle, twisting it. The room was dark. He slapped the dimmer switch on the wall. The soft golden light flooded the room, and Mark Thorne stopped breathing. The room was empty. Not just devoid of people, devoid of life. The crib, The expensive hand-carved oak crib they had imported from Italy was gone. The changing table was gone. The rocking chair where he had watched her nurse Leo 100 times, gone. The room was a box of empty white walls. The carpet still held the faint indentations of where the furniture had stood, like phantom limbs. "What the?" Mark spun around, panic finally piercing his arrogance. "Sophia! Sophia!" He ran back to the master bedroom and tore open the walk-in closet. He froze. His side of the closet was untouched. His Armani suits, his casual wear, his collection of watches. Her side was bare. Wire hangers dangled empty, clinking softly together from the draft of the open door. The shelves where her shoes had been lined up, Louboutins, Nikes, sandals, were wiped clean. It wasn't just that she had packed a bag. She had packed everything. He ran to the bathroom, her toothbrush, her creams, her makeup, all gone. It was as if Sophia Thorne had never existed. Mark stumbled back into the bedroom, his hands trembling. He reached for his phone and dialed her number. "We're sorry. The number you have dialed is no longer in service." He stared at the screen. That was impossible. He paid the bill. It was a family plan. He dialed again. Same automated voice. Cold. Final. He sat on the edge of the perfectly made bed, his mind racing. Was this a kidnapping? A robbery? No, robbers didn't make the bed. Robbers didn't carefully remove a crib and leave the expensive TV downstairs. This was an exodus. He stood up and ran downstairs to his home office. He needed to check the safe. They kept their passports, birth certificates, and emergency cash there. He threw open the heavy oak door of the study and moved the painting of the abstract seascape to reveal the wall safe. His fingers fumbled as he punched in the code. 10/24/18, their wedding anniversary. Beep, error. Mark froze. He typed it again. 10/24/18, beep, error. No, he hissed. He tried Sophia's birthday. Or 6/12/92, beep, error. He tried Leo's birthday. 02/14/24. Click. The mechanism whirred, and the heavy door popped open. Mark ripped it open, desperate to see the passports, to see some proof of his family. The safe was empty. The stacks of cash, nearly $50,000 he kept for emergencies, were gone. The passports were gone. The deed to the house was gone. But there was one thing left. Sitting in the center of the metal shelf was a small, velvet jewelry box. Mark recognized it immediately. It was the box for the diamond engagement ring he had given her. A 3-carat oval cut that had cost him a fortune. With shaking hands, he opened the box. The ring was there. But underneath the ring, folded into a tight square, was a piece of paper. He unfolded it. It wasn't a handwritten note. It was a printout of a bank transaction receipt. It was dated yesterday. Transfer initiated from Mark and Sophia Joint Savings. Amount $2,450,000. Account balance $0.00. Recipient unknown offshore entity. And beneath the receipt, scrawled in red ink, Sophia's handwriting, unmistakable and sharp, were 3 words. Tuition for the lesson. Mark stared at the paper until the numbers blurred. $2.5 million. Liquidity. Gone. He scrambled for his phone again, ignoring the shaking of his hands, and dialed 911. Emergency! What is the situation? My wife! Mark choked out, the reality finally hitting his vocal cords. My wife is gone. My son is gone. Someone took them. Sir, take a breath. Are you saying they were kidnapped? I don't know. The house is empty. Her things are gone. The baby's furniture is gone. It sounds like she left you, sir, the dispatcher said, her voice shifting from urgent to weary. This is a civil matter if... She took $2 million, Mark roared, the veins in his neck bulging, and she emptied the safe. Send the police, now. 30 minutes later, Two patrol cars were flashing red and blue lights against the minimalist facade of his home. Mark was pacing the living room, clutching a glass of scotch he hadn't drunk. A detective walked in. Detective Vance. He was an older man, wearing a rumpled trench coat that looked like it belonged in a different decade. He had tired eyes that had seen too many domestic disputes. "Mr. Thorne?" Vance asked, looking around the empty, sterile living room. "I'm Detective Vance. Want to tell me what happened?" "I came home," Mark stammered. "From work. Late, and they were gone." "Work?" Vance raised an eyebrow. "At 3 a.m.? Mark hesitated. A client dinner that ran late. Vance didn't look convinced, but he didn't press it yet. "And you say she cleared out everything? Clothes? Furniture?" "Everything. The nursery is bare." "That takes time, Mr. Thorne," Vance said, taking out a notepad. "Moving a crib? Packing a wardrobe? That takes a crew. Did the neighbors see a moving truck?" "I don't know. I haven't asked them." Vance walked over to the mantel where a few picture frames usually stood. They were gone too. "Okay, let's start with the basics. What is your wife's full name?" "Sophia Thorne." "Maiden name?" "Sophia Rostova." "Rostova, Russian. She's from Europe. Look, she didn't just leave. She stole everything. She drained the accounts." Vance nodded slowly. "Do you have a picture of her? We need to put out a bolo. Be on the lookout if you think the child is in danger." Mark reached for his phone to pull up his gallery. He scrolled to his favorites. His thumb hovered. He scrolled up, then down. "What is it?" Vance asked. "My photos," Mark whispered. "They're gone." "What do you mean?" "The photos of Sophia, the photos of Leo, they're deleted." He looked up, his eyes wide with horror. "We shared an iCloud account. She remotely wiped them." "You don't have any physical photos?" "She took the frames," Mark yelled, throwing the phone onto the couch. Wait. Social media." Mark rushed to his laptop on the coffee table. He opened Instagram. He went to tag search. User not found. He went to Facebook. Profile no longer exists. "She deleted everything," Mark said, his voice dropping to a terrified whisper. "She erased herself." Vance stepped closer, his demeanor changing from bored to sharp. "Mr. Thorne, this is very thorough for a domestic dispute. How long have you been married?" 5 years. "And where did you meet?" "New York, an art gallery." "Did she have family here?" "No. Her parents died in a car crash in Latvia years ago. She has no one." "Latvia," Vance muttered, writing it down. "Okay. We'll need to run her through the system. I need her social security number." Mark ran back to the office. The safe was empty, but he had the tax returns on his hard drive. He booted up his desktop computer. Enter password. He typed his password. Incorrect password. "She changed it." Mark slammed his fist on the desk. "She locked me out of my own computer." "Mr. Thorne," Vance said from the doorway, "do you have any physical paper trail? A marriage certificate? A birth certificate for the boy?" "In the safe, which she emptied." Vance sighed. "Okay, we can look up the marriage license in the county records. It's public record." "What was the date of the marriage?" "October 24th, 2018. We got married at the City Hall in Manhattan before the reception." Vance pulled out his phone and made a call. He spoke in low tones, giving dates and names. Mark paced, the silence of the house pressing in on him. He felt like he was suffocating. The house wasn't just empty. It felt like a stage set where the actors had gone home, leaving him talking to the walls. Vance hung up the phone and turned to Mark. His expression was unreadable. "Mr. Thorne," Vance said slowly. "Are you sure about that date?" "Yes, of course I'm sure." "And the name? Sophia Rostova?" "Yes. Because I just had the New York clerk's office run a search. There is no record of a marriage between a Mark Thorne and an Sofia Rostova on that date. Or any date in 2018. Mark stopped pacing. That's ridiculous. I was there. I signed the papers. We checked for the birth certificate of a Leo Thorne, too, Vance continued, his voice dropping an octave. Nothing. What are you saying? Mark whispered. I'm saying, Mr. Thorne, that according to the United States government, the woman you lived with for 5 years and the child you claim to have don't exist. Mark collapsed into the leather office chair. The room spun. That's impossible. I have friends who met her. My employees met her at the Christmas party. We can interview them, Vance said. But right now, legally speaking, you're chasing a ghost. And if she cleared the bank accounts, usually that requires 2 signatures. Unless what? Unless the accounts were never really joint, or unless she had power of attorney without you knowing. Vance looked around the room. You said she was boring. Just a mom. Tell me, Mr. Thorne, what did your wife do before she met you? She worked in art, logistics, shipping paintings. Vance let out a dry, humorless chuckle. Logistics, right. Suddenly, Mark's phone buzzed on the couch. It wasn't a call. It was a notification from his home security system provider. Motion detected. Backyard. 03:48 a.m. Someone is outside, Mark gasped. Vance drew his weapon instantly. Stay here. The detective moved towards the French doors leading to the garden. Mark followed at a distance. The backyard was dark, the pool water black and still. Vance shone his flashlight across the lawn. Nothing. Then the beam hit the singular oak tree in the center of the yard. Pinned to the bark of the tree, fluttering in the night breeze, was a baby's onesie. Leo's favorite blue onesie. Mark shoved past the detective and ran outside, grabbing the small piece of fabric. It was damp with dew. He turned it over. Pinned to the back was a Polaroid photo. Mark shone his phone light on it. It was a photo of Mark, taken tonight. At 1:00 a.m., he was standing on the balcony of Jessica's apartment, smoking a cigarette, laughing. The angle was from a high-powered lens, taken from a rooftop across the street. She had been watching him. While he was cheating, she wasn't packing. She was watching. And scrawled on the bottom of the photo was a coordinate. 44 north again. 110.55. She's playing a game, Vance said, looking at the photo over Mark's shoulder. And she's way ahead of you. Mark stared at the coordinates scrawled on the Polaroid. 44.42 N, 110.458 W. Yellowstone, Detective Vance said, looking up from his smartphone. The blue light of the screen illuminated the deep lines of worry etched into his face. Grant Village? Why there? Did you vacation there? Mark felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead, distinct from the chill of the night air. We went there for our honeymoon. We rented a cabin near the lake. It was the only time she ever asked to go somewhere rugged. She said she wanted to see the wolves. The wolves, Vance repeated, his tone dry. Seems fitting. Vance holstered his weapon but didn't relax. Mr. Thorne, I'm going to level with you. People don't vanish like this without extensive preparation. The lack of records, the wiped data, the empty safe. This is professional. This isn't a scorned housewife. This is tradecraft. Who exactly is your wife? I told you, Mark snapped, pacing the manicured grass in his Italian leather shoes. She's a mother. She liked gardening and Pinot Grigio. She was boring. Boring women don't scrub their existence from government databases, Vance countered, and they don't have surveillance photos of their husbands cheating taken from a rooftop at 1:20 a.m. Mark flinched. The photo was still in his hand, a damning piece of evidence. "Look, forget the cheating. She took my son. You have to find Leo." "We will try," Vance said, signaling for the uniformed officers to begin canvassing the perimeter. "But if she doesn't exist on paper, tracking her is going to be a nightmare. I'm going to need access to your business records, your travel history, everything. If she was planning this, she might have compromised more than just your personal checking account." Mark froze. Business records, Thorne and Associates. He had just closed the merger with Vanguard Holdings yesterday, a $400 million deal that would reshape the Los Angeles skyline. The deal relied on proprietary architectural blueprints and sensitive zoning permits that Mark had greased a few palms to acquire. "I need to go to the office," Mark said abruptly, turning back toward the house. "Mr. Thorne, it's 4 a.m. We need you here for a statement." "I can't be here," Mark yelled, his voice cracking. "If she has my passwords, she has access to the firm's servers. Do you understand? That's not just my money. That's my life's work." Without waiting for Vance's permission, Mark stormed into the house, grabbed his keys, and sprinted back to the Audi. He needed to verify the integrity of the firm's mainframe. If Sophia had been planning this for a long time, she knew that his firm was his true love. Leo was his legacy, but the firm was his ego. He tore out of the driveway, tires screeching. As he drove toward downtown LA, he tried to call Jessica. He needed to hear a voice that was simple, admiring, and real. Ring. 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 "Mark!" Jessica's voice answered. She sounded breathless, terrified. "Jess, listen, something happened. Sophia left. She took everything. I'm coming to—" "Mark, stop!" Jessica screamed. "Don't come here!" Mark slammed on the brakes at a red light. "What? Why? What's going on?" "Someone was here," Jessica sobbed. "I woke up 10 minutes ago. My door was unlocked. Mark, they didn't take my TV or my jewelry." "What did they take?" "They took you," she whispered. "Every gift you ever gave me. The Cartier bracelet, the diamond earrings, the bag. They're gone. And, Mark, they left something on my pillow." Mark's grip on the steering wheel tightened until his knuckles turned white. "What is it?" It's a pacifier, a blue pacifier." Mark felt the blood drain from his face. Leo's pacifier. Sophia had been in Jessica's apartment. While Mark was driving home, while he was discovering the empty crib, Sophia, or whoever she had hired, had been standing over his sleeping mistress, placing a baby's pacifier on her pillow. It wasn't just a theft. It was a message. "I can touch anyone you touch." "Get out of there," Mark ordered, his voice trembling. "Go to a hotel, pay cash. Do not use your cards. I'll call you." He hung up and floored the accelerator. The city lights blurred into streaks of neon violence. He wasn't dealing with a divorce. He was dealing with a phantom who had been sleeping in his bed, memorizing his codes, and waiting for the perfect moment to dismantle him piece by piece. He pulled up to his office building, a sleek glass tower he had designed himself. He badged in at the security desk. The night guard, a jovial man named Sampson, nodded. "Working late, Mr. Thorne?" "Something like that, Sampson." Mark took the private elevator to the penthouse floor. The doors slid open, revealing the silent, plush lobby of Thorne and Associates. He ran to his corner office, throwing open the glass door. Everything looked normal. The models of skyscrapers stood on their pedestals. His awards lined the shelves. He sat at his desk and woke his computer. He typed in his credentials. "Access denied." "No," he hissed. He tried the admin override code. "Access denied. System lockdown initiated." Suddenly, the large monitor on the wall, the one used for client presentations, flickered to life. Mark jumped back. He hadn't turned it on. A video file began to play. It was footage from inside this very office. The timestamp was from 3 weeks ago. Mark watched himself on the screen. He was sitting at his desk, speaking to a city councilman. He watched himself open a briefcase and slide an envelope of cash across the mahogany surface. "This ensures the zoning for the marina project goes away," the on-screen Mark said. "Pleasure doing business, Mark," the councilman replied. The video cut to black. Then, white text appeared on the screen. Files uploaded to the FBI, IRS, and the LA Times. Scheduled release, 9:00 a.m. today. Mark stared at the screen, his mouth dry as ash. It wasn't just the money. It wasn't just the baby. She was burning him to the ground. She had recorded his felonies. She had the leverage to send him to prison for 20 years. And then a new line of text appeared, blinking slowly. "Do you want to stop the upload? Go to the coordinates. Alone." Mark stared at the digital ultimatum on the wall. It was 4:45 a.m. He had 4 hours and 15 minutes before his life as a celebrated architect ended and his life as a federal inmate began. He grabbed his desk phone to call his lawyer, but stopped. If he called a lawyer, he would have to admit to the bribery recorded on the tape. Attorney-client privilege had limits, and panic makes men make mistakes. He needed a fixer. He pulled a burner phone from a hidden compartment in his desk drawer, one of the few secrets he prayed Sophia hadn't found. He dialed a number he hadn't used in years. "Make it quick," a gravelly voice answered on the second ring. "Garrison," Mark said. "It's Thorne. I have a situation." "I see the news, Thorne. I don't do divorces." "It's not a divorce," Mark hissed. "She cleaned me out. Identity theft, kidnapping, and corporate espionage. She has dirt on me, Garrison. Bad dirt. She's threatening to release it in 4 hours." There was a pause on the line. Garrison was an ex-CIA operative who had been drummed out of the service for being too aggressive. He now ran a boutique private intelligence firm for people who had more money than morals. "Who is she?" Garrison asked. "Sophia Rostova. But the cops say she doesn't exist." "Ghost," Garrison muttered. "Okay, I can run a deep trace, but if she's wiped government databases, she's not working alone. She has backing, state-level or organized crime. You marry into the mob, Thorne?" "She was an orphan. She liked painting watercolors of the ocean." "Right, and I like knitting. Send me everything you have. Photos, old emails, anything she might have missed." She didn't miss anything. She wiped the cloud. Nothing is ever truly wiped, Thorne. The servers still have the ghosts of the data. I'll get my tech guys on your accounts. Where are you going? "Yellowstone," Mark said. She gave me coordinates, a deadline. "Don't do it," Garrison warned. "It's a kill box. You go there, you don't come back. If I don't go, she releases the video. I go to jail anyway. At least this way I might find my son." "Fine. But take protection. And Thorne, if this woman is who I think she is, a sleeper, she's been studying you for 5 years. She knows how you think better than you do. Don't try to outsmart her. Just survive her." Mark hung up. He didn't have a gun. He was an architect. His tools were protractors and CAD software. But he had a private jet. He ran out of the office, ignoring the security guard, and drove toward the private airfield in Santa Monica, where he kept his Gulfstream. As he drove, his mind replayed the last 5 years. Every memory was now suspect. The way she spoke 4 languages fluently, but claimed she just picked them up. Traveling. The way she never got sick. The way she noticed things before they happened. A waiter dropping a tray, a car swerving in traffic. He had thought she was observant. Now he realized she was trained. He arrived at the airfield at 5:30 a.m. His pilot, Dave, was already prepping the plane. "Mr. Thorne, wasn't expecting you. Flight plan. West Yellowstone. Now, how fast can we get there?" Dave looked at Mark's disheveled appearance, the unbuttoned collar, the sweat stains, the wild eyes. "Weather is rough over Wyoming, sir. Might take 2 hours. Just get me there." Mark boarded the plane. As the jet engines whined to life, he opened his laptop, a backup air-gapped machine he kept on the plane. He connected to the plane's Wi-Fi. He had one idea, one place she might have slipped up. The baby monitor. They had a high-end smart monitor in Leo's room. It was connected to the Wi-Fi, but it had a separate cloud storage managed by a third-party security company, not Apple or Google. If Sophia had wiped the main accounts, maybe she forgot the proprietary app for the camera. Mark downloaded the app. His hands shook as he typed in the username. He guessed the password. She usually set the household passwords. Password incorrect. He tried again. Leo 2024. Access granted. The feed loaded. It was black. The camera was gone, but he went to the event history. Most of the clips were deleted, but there was one. The last one. Timestamp. 9:15 p.m. last night. Mark clicked play. The black and white night vision footage showed the nursery. Leo was sleeping in the crib. Sophia walked into the frame. She was dressed in black tactical gear, pants, boots, a fitted sweater. She looked nothing like the woman who wore floral sundresses. Her movements were precise, efficient. She picked up Leo gently. The baby stirred. "Shh," she whispered. The audio was crisp. "Mama has you. We're going on an adventure." She walked to the camera. She stared directly into the lens. Her eyes, usually soft and brown, looked like cold obsidian. She didn't smash the camera. She spoke to it. "Mark," she said softly, "I know you're watching this on the plane. You always take the plane when you run." Mark gasped, recoiling from the screen. She had predicted his exact movement hours in advance. "You think you're the main character in this story?" she continued, adjusting the baby on her hip. "You think you're the powerful man who got bored with his simple wife. But you were never the powerful one, Mark. You were the assignment." She leaned closer. 5 years ago, your firm won the contract for the Defense Department's new cybersecurity facility in Nevada. You have the blueprints. You have the security schematics stored on an offline drive in your safe. Or you did. Mark stopped breathing. He had forgotten about that project. It was classified. He had kept a copy of the designs for insurance, hidden in the false bottom of the safe. "I didn't marry you for love," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. "I didn't marry you for money. I married you for the blueprints. And now that the facility is built and operational, my mission is complete. Leo is my bonus. You are my loose end." She reached up and unplugged the camera. The screen went static. Mark sat back in the leather seat of the private jet, the roar of the engines vibrating in his bones. She wasn't a jealous wife. She wasn't a con artist. She was a foreign intelligence agent, and she had just stolen the architectural secrets to the most secure building in the United States. He wasn't chasing a wife. He was chasing an act of war. The Gulf Stream touched down on the tarmac at Yellowstone Airport in a cloud of freezing mist. It was technically spring, but at this altitude, the air bit like a wild animal. Mark didn't have a coat. He was still in his suit from the night before, the fabric thin and useless against the Wyoming wind. He rented a Jeep Wrangler from the sleepy kiosk, throwing his black Amex on the counter. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely sign the rental agreement. "Heading into the park?" the clerk asked, eyeing Mark's disheveled appearance. Roads are icy near the pass. Just driving, Mark muttered, snatching the keys. He drove south, the heater blasting. The landscape was alien. Huge pines dusted with frost, steam vents rising from the earth like ghosts. The GPS coordinates Sophia had left pointed to a location deep within the park, near the West Thumb Geyser Basin. 44-42 110 W. As he drove, his burner phone buzzed. It was Garrison. "Thorne, listen to me." Garrison's voice was distorted by static. "I ran the facial recognition from your wedding photos against the Five Eyes database. We got a hit. A very old, very redacted hit." "Who is she?" Mark asked, his eyes scanning the tree line for snipers. "Her name isn't Sophia. It's Katya Volkov. She was trained by the SVR, Russian Foreign Intelligence, but she went rogue about 7 years ago. She's a mercenary, Mark, a corporate saboteur. She specializes in deep cover acquisition. She doesn't just steal data. She becomes the person who has access to it." "She has my son," Mark choked out. Does she hurt the targets?" "She completes the mission," Garrison said grimly. "Usually the target takes the fall for the theft. Suicide, accident, or prison. She disappears. Thorne, if you walk into those coordinates, you are walking into a sanitized crime scene. She's going to kill you and make it look like a grief-stricken suicide. Husband kills family, then himself. It's a clean narrative." "I don't care," Mark said, turning the Jeep onto a gravel access road restricted for maintenance vehicles. He smashed through the flimsy wooden gate. "I'm close. Mark, do not engage. I have a team spinning up in Bozeman. We can be there in—" Mark hung up. He tossed the phone onto the passenger seat. He reached the end of the road. The coordinates pointed toward a wooden boardwalk, winding through a field of bubbling mud pots and steaming thermal pools. The smell of sulfur, rotten eggs, was overpowering. The area was deserted. The park was barely open for the season, and this section was isolated. Mark got out of the car. The silence was absolute, broken only by the wet plop-plop of the boiling mud. "Sophia!" he screamed, his voice tearing at his throat. "Katya, I'm here!" Steam drifted across the boardwalk, obscuring his vision. He walked forward, the wood creaking under his Italian loafers. 50 yards ahead, through the mist, he saw it. A stroller. It was their stroller, the expensive charcoal-grey bugaboo they pushed around the neighborhood to keep up appearances. It was parked right at the edge of the railing, overlooking a deep, boiling blue pool. "Leo!" Mark broke into a sprint. His lungs burned in the thin air. He didn't care about snipers. He didn't care about the blueprints. He just saw the stroller. He reached it, grabbing the handle, spinning it around. "Leo, Daddy's here." He froze. The stroller was empty. Inside, strapped into the harness, was a ruggedized laptop. The screen was glowing blue. On the screen was a live video feed. It showed Leo. He was in a car seat, asleep, safe. The background of the video showed the interior of a vehicle, moving. And then a voice came from the laptop speakers. "You made good time, Mark." Mark spun around, looking for a camera, a microphone, anything. "Where are you? I gave you what you wanted. You have the blueprints." "I have the files," Sophia's voice purred from the computer. "But encryption is a funny thing. The Department of Defense uses a polymorphic cipher. I can't crack it, but you can." "I don't know the code," Mark yelled at the laptop. "I'm the architect, not the IT guy." "No," she corrected, "but the system is biometric. To open the master file, the one that details the thermal exhaust ports of the server farm, it requires the voice authorization of the lead architect. That's you." Mark realized the trap. She didn't need him dead. Not yet. She needed his voice. "If I do this," Mark said, leaning over the laptop, the sulfur stinging his eyes. "If I unlock it, you give me Leo. Unlock it, and I will tell you where the car is parked. You have 10 seconds, Mark, or I drive this car off the road." A prompt appeared on the screen. "Voice authentication. Required. Read the phrase." The phrase appeared in white text. Mark hesitated. If he read this, he was committing treason. He was giving a foreign entity the schematic to a US cyber warfare hub. He would be hunted for the rest of his life. He looked at the video feed of Leo sleeping. His son's small hand was curled into a fist. Mark leaned into the microphone. "Authorization Alpha 9, Mark Thorne. Override protocol. Daedalus. Processing. Access granted." "Good boy," Sophia's voice said. "The file is decrypting. Goodbye, Mark." "Where is he?" Mark screamed. "Where is the car?" "Check under the stroller seat," she said. The connection cut. The screen went black. Mark ripped the seat of the stroller up. Taped to the bottom was a cell phone. It was counting down. 0005, 0004. It wasn't a phone. It was a detonator. Mark realized instantly that the phone was wired to a block of C4 putty shoved into the stroller's storage basket. She was cleaning up the loose end. Mark didn't think. He didn't run away. He lunged, kicking the stroller with every ounce of strength he had. The stroller flew off the boardwalk, sailing into the air, and splashed into the boiling thermal pool below. Boom! The explosion was muffled by the water, but the shockwave knocked Mark backward onto the wooden planks. Boiling water and mud rained down on him. A geyser of steam erupted from the pool, hissing violently. Mark lay on his back, gasping for air, his ears ringing. He was alive. He rolled over, coughing. He had authorized the treason. He had lost his son. And he had almost been blown to pieces by the woman who used to make him avocado toast. He grabbed the burner phone from his pocket. It was cracked, but working. "Garrison," Mark rasped. "Thorne? I saw a thermal spike on the satellite. Did you just blow up?" "She tried to," Mark spat, staggering to his feet. "She has the blueprints. Decrypted. She played me." "Okay, listen to me," Garrison said, his voice hard. "If she has the decrypted files, she has to transmit them. The files are huge, terabytes of KD data. She needs a high-speed uplink. She can't do that from a moving car in Yellowstone. She needs a hard line." Mark looked around the desolate park. "Where?" "We're in the middle of nowhere." "Think, Mark. You designed the infrastructure for the region. Where is the nearest fiber-optic trunk line with a commercial access point?" Mark's mind raced, shifting from panic to architecture. He visualized the grid he had helped map out 5 years ago. "The ranger station," Mark whispered. "The old faithful ranger station. We retrofitted it with a direct fiber link to the H-Sophia hub for seismic monitoring. It has the bandwidth." "That's where she is," Garrison said. "Get there, and Thorne, stop playing the victim. You built the building she's trying to destroy. You know its weaknesses. Use them." Mark drove the Jeep like a madman, tires skidding on the black ice as he rounded the curves toward Old Faithful. The adrenaline had numbed the cold. He wasn't Mark the husband anymore. He wasn't Mark the cheater. He was Mark the architect, and someone was messing with his design. The Old Faithful complex was a ghost town in the off-season. The massive log cabin-style inn was shuttered. The visitor center was dark, but the ranger station, a low concrete bunker near the geyser, had a faint light in the window. Mark killed the headlights a quarter-mile out. He drove off the road, hiding the Jeep behind a cluster of pines. He got out, moving low. He reached into the back of the Jeep and grabbed the tire iron. It was a pathetic weapon against a trained assassin, but it was heavy. He crept towards the station. The wind howled, masking his footsteps. He peered through the side window. There she was. Sophia, no, Katya, was sitting at the main terminal of the ranger station. She had bypassed the lock on the door. Cables ran from her ruggedized laptop into the station's server port. A progress bar on her screen read, "Upload, 45%. She looked different. Her hair was pulled back tight. She wore a tactical vest. A suppressed pistol sat on the desk next to her hand. But in the corner of the room, on the floor, sat the car seat. Leo was there. He was awake now, looking around with wide, confused eyes, but he wasn't crying. Mark's heart hammered against his ribs. He couldn't burst in. She would shoot him before he took 2 steps. He needed a distraction. He looked at the building. He knew this station. He had signed off on the HVAC renovation 3 years ago. The Halon system. Because the station housed sensitive seismic servers, it was equipped with a gas fire suppression system. Halon gas sucks the oxygen out of the room to kill a fire instantly without damaging electronics. It wouldn't kill a person immediately, but it would disorient them, steal their breath, and create a deafening roar. The manual override for the system was in an external utility box on the north wall. Mark crept around the building. He found the grey metal box. It was padlocked. He jammed the tip of the tire iron into the padlock hasp and twisted. He groaned, putting his weight into it. The metal shrieked. Snap! The lock broke. Mark threw the door open. Inside was a large red lever. Emergency purge. He took a deep breath. "Hold your breath, Leo," he whispered. He yanked the lever down. Whoosh! Inside the station, jets of gas erupted from the ceiling with the sound of a jet engine. Mark scrambled around to the front door. Inside, chaos. Papers flew everywhere. The noise was incredible. Sophia had fallen out of her chair, grabbing her throat, her eyes streaming. She reached for her gun, but the sudden change in pressure and the deafening noise disoriented her. Mark kicked the door open. He didn't go for Sophia. He went for the laptop. He swung the tire iron with a primal scream, smashing it down onto the keyboard. Crack! The screen shattered. The upload froze. Sophia recovered faster than he expected. She lunged at him, tackling him to the ground. She was strong, much stronger than him. She drove a knee into his gut, knocking the wind out of him. "You idiot!" she screamed, her voice distorted by the gas. "You think breaking the screen stops it? It's cloud-synced." She pulled a knife from her boot, a serrated black blade. She raised it. Mark scrambled back, sliding on the polished floor. His hand brushed against the gun she had dropped on the desk. He grabbed it. He had never fired a gun in his life. He pointed it blindly and pulled the trigger. Bang! The shot went wild, shattering the window above Leo's head. Glass rained down. Leo started to scream. Sophia didn't flinch. She kicked the gun out of Mark's hand. She pinned him down, the knife pressing against his throat. "I actually liked you, Mark," she hissed, her face inches from his. "You were simple, easy." "The building," Mark gasped, struggling against her grip. "The Nevada facility. It has a flaw." Sophia paused, the knife biting into his skin. "What?" "I designed it," Mark choked out. "The cooling vents, underneath the server core. If you run the system at max capacity, without opening the vents, it overheats," she finished. "So what?" "So," Mark smiled, blood staining his teeth. "I didn't just authorize the upload when I gave the voice command. I initiated a stress test." Sophia's eyes went wide. "You didn't," she whispered. "Protocol Daedalus," Mark said. "It's not an unlock code. It's a self-destruct sequence for the cooling system. You didn't steal the blueprints, Katya. You just uploaded a virus that is going to melt down the servers you were trying to map." Sophia looked at the smashed laptop. If the upload had gone through, even partially, the command was already executed. She had failed her mission, and worse, she had likely destroyed the very asset her buyers wanted. She looked back at Mark with pure fury. She raised the knife. "Then I have no reason to keep you alive." Suddenly, a red laser dot appeared on her forehead. Crash! The window shattered inward. "FBI! Drop the weapon!" Garrison had come through, the team from Bozeman. Sophia froze. She calculated the odds in a split second. A sniper had her painted. She slowly lifted her hands, the knife clattering to the floor. Mark shoved her off him and scrambled toward the car seat. He scooped Leo up, holding him tight, burying his face in the baby's neck. The smell of milk and baby powder was the only real thing in the world. Agents swarmed the room, zip-tying Sophia's hands behind her back. She didn't struggle. She just watched Mark. As they dragged her out, she stopped. She looked at Mark, holding his son. "You lied," she said, a hint of admiration in her voice. "There is no self-destruct sequence. Daedalus isn't real." Mark looked up, exhaustion washing over him. "I know. But you hesitated. That's all I needed." She smirked, cold and sharp. "Check your bank account, Mark. I didn't steal your money. I moved it. It's in a trust. For Leo. I'm not a monster. I'm just a professional." She was shoved into a waiting SUV. Mark sat on the floor of the ranger station, holding his son as the adrenaline finally crashed. 6 months had passed since the steam cleared at Yellowstone. Mark Thorne sat on the floor of a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Santa Monica. The sprawling glass mansion in Silver Lake was sold. He couldn't live there anymore. The silence in that house was too loud. Every shadow looked like her. He watched Leo stack wooden blocks. The boy was walking now, his steps clumsy and determined. Leo looked so much like her, the same dark eyes, the same stubborn set of the jaw. Mark wasn't the CEO of Thorne and Associates anymore. After the FBI debriefing, which had lasted 3 grueling weeks, he had stepped down. The government had swept the incident under the rug. There was no news story about a Russian sleeper agent stealing blueprints. There was only a quiet press release about Mark Thorne taking a sabbatical for personal health reasons. He was free, technically, but he was a prisoner of his own memory. Jessica, his mistress, had left him the day after the kidnapping. She had called him a monster for endangering a child and blocked his number. He didn't blame her. He didn't miss her either. The affair seemed like a lifetime ago, a dull indulgence of a man who didn't know how good he had it. Mark stood up and walked to the kitchen counter, where a letter sat unopened. It had arrived this morning, forwarded by his lawyer. It was from the Rostova Trust. Sophia wasn't in prison. Not really. The FBI had traded her. A prisoner swap on a tarmac in Estonia 2 months ago. She was gone, back to the shadows she came from. But before she left, she had kept her word. Mark picked up the letter. He tore it open. Inside was a bank statement. Beneficiary, Leo Thorne. Trustee, Mark Thorne. Current balance, $5,000. Jessanias. She hadn't just returned the $2 million she stole. She had added $3 million more. Payment for the job she had completed? Or guilt money? Stuck to the statement was a small, handwritten note. No signature. Just her sharp, angular handwriting. He needs a father, not an architect. Build him a life, Mark, or I will come back and dismantle yours again. Mark stared at the paper. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. He looked back at Leo. The boy laughed, knocking over the tower of blocks. Mark walked over and sat down next to his son. He picked up a block. "Okay," Mark whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Let's build it again. Better this time." He was safe. He was rich. He had his son. But every night, before he went to sleep, Mark Thorne checked the locks on the doors 3 times. And every time he passed a woman in a crowd who wore vanilla perfume, his heart stopped cold. He had survived the woman who didn't exist. But he knew, deep down, that a part of him, the arrogant, careless man he used to be, had died in that nursery the night she left. And that was the only death that really mattered. And that is the story of Mark Thorne, a man who thought he was playing a game, only to realize he was just a pawn on someone else's board. It's a terrifying reminder that the people we sleep next to have entire universes inside them that we might never see. Mark got his son back, but he lost his peace of mind forever. He learned the hard way that betrayal isn't just about cheating, it's about underestimating the person you promised to love. What would you have done in Mark's shoes? Would you have gone to the coordinates, or would you have called the police immediately? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story of twists, betrayal, and redemption, please hit that like button. It helps the channel immensely. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a story. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.